The Netflix historical action drama movie Seven Kings Must Die has the full title The Last Kingdom. Seven Kings Must Die. The Last Kingdom, a BBC Two Netflix series, is directly followed by the movie, which wraps up the epic saga of Uhtred of Bebbanburg. The Saxon Stories, a series of historical fiction novels by Bernard Cornwell, served as the inspiration for both the television show and the movie. Seven Kings Must Die is especially based on the final 2 volumes in the series, Sword of Kings and Warlord. However, during the adaptation process, a lot of creative license was used. The story is essentially fictional even if the movie is a retelling of real-life events. Here is all the information you could need to know on Seven Kings Must Die's conclusion. Spoiler alert. Seven Kings Must Die plot synopsis. A fiercely devoted Irish warrior serving under Uhtred, Finan, provides narration at the beginning and end of the movie. Before the story even begins, he establishes the scene for the narrative. Enemies of Wessex start moving in their lair as ruler Edward lies dying because they know that there would always be internal strife and violence following the death of a Saxon ruler. Wessex, Mercia, and East Anglia make up the majority of England and are already under Saxon rule. However, Northumbria, which Uhtred rules from his castle in Bebbanburg, isn't technically part of England. Despite being a Saxon by birth, Uhtred was raised as a Dane and today practices Norse paganism. He mediated a settlement between Edward and King Constantine of Scotia towards the end of the Last Kingdom. Northumbria served as a physical barrier between what is now known as England and Scotia according to Uhtred. Despite not swearing allegiance to Edward, he acknowledged him as his superior and agreed to do his tribute. Anlaf, the Hiberno-Scandinavian king of Ireland, arrives in West Northumbria as Edward approaches death and massacres a whole town before reuniting with his daughter Astrid, who had earlier traveled to England as a spy. Aelfred of Wessex, one of Edward's sons, moves as soon as his father passes away to take the throne that is left empty. He makes an attempt to detain the son of Edward and the widowed Queen Egifu, but they manage to escape to Northumbria with Aldhelm and take refuge in Bebbanburg. Athelstan, who spent a large portion of his youth in Northumbria, views Uhtred as a father figure and readily supports the younger man's claim to the throne. After some time, he finally decides to leave Bebbanburg, but not before Egifu cautions him that Athelstan is no longer the jovial boy he and his supporters remember. Uhtred finds out how accurate this is quickly. Athelstan has developed into a violent and fervent religious fanatic thanks to the influence of Ingilmundr, his servant and covert lover. His conviction that his feelings for Ingilmundr are an insult to God appears to be a driving force behind his zealotry. Even after Aelfred gives up, he kills him, and he starts deliberately going for the portion of the Danish populace that still adheres to the old customs. Uhtred opposes Athelstan's new laws and declines to swear allegiance to him. However, he promises that once the younger man proves himself to be a worthy king of everyone who lives in England, he will be happy to do so. Uhtred is the ruler of what is possibly the only English territory where pagans and Christians coexist peacefully. Other rulers in the British Isles are uneasy about Athelstan's ambitious endeavors. Seizing the moment, Anlaf rallies them together by convincing them that Athelstan will come after all of them. And given how cruel and ambitious Athelstan shows himself to be, this couldn't be further from the truth. Uhtred is captured through treachery by Ingilmundr and Athelstan as a result of his continual defiance of royal orders. Osbert, his son, and Edmund are assigned as regular soldiers to Ingilmundr's garrison in Thelwale. Aldhelm has been put to death for aiding Uhtred in escaping earlier, Uhtred learns. Although Uhtred is ready to die, Athelstan spares him, banishes him, and forbids anybody from aiding him. Uhtred wanders aimlessly around the plains for weeks while suffering from hunger and cold. As he is about to pass away, Anlaf's followers find him and transport him to the Shetland Isles, where the angry monarchs and their forces have gathered. Before Athelstan's ascent, the Christian and pagan kings were at each other's throats, but now that he is king, they must work together to resolve their differences. The gathered kings advise Uhtred that killing Athelstan is the only way to avert a war. Uhtred notices Ingilmundr there as he prepares to leave the camp and deduces that the other guy is one of Athelstan's close aides and Anlaf's spy. He hastily travels to Winchester, the Wessex province's capital, not to kill Athelstan but to forewarn him. Unfortunately, the young monarch doesn't think he's real. It doesn't take long, though, before Ingilmundr's duplicity is exposed. Osbert and Edmund are able to survive despite the Erland army slaughtering the Saxon soldiers stationed there after he allows them to pass through Thelwale. Athelstan, who has since repented for his foolishness, wants to send Uhtred and the others away so that he may deal with the repercussions of his actions alone. But Uhtred won't leave the lad he has always regarded as a son. Due to Uhtred's ingenuity, the English army defeats a much bigger force at the Battle of Brunanbar, but after the dust settles, he is discovered to have been seriously injured. Seven Kings Must Die ending. Does Uhtred die? In one of the movie's closing sequences, Uhtred emerges from the room where he has been sleeping ever since the war. He now appears to be an elderly warrior for the first time in the film as a result of his wounds. Uhtred finally swears allegiance to Athelstan in the presence of his successor Osbert on the condition that the young king would never wed, and that his throne will be transferred to his brother Edmund. He hears a ruckus behind him as he converses with his friends, family, Egifu, with whom Uhtred has become close since the beginning of all this, and Athelstan. All the people he has lost are there, feasting, when he sees the doors of a huge hall open. The movie closes with Uhtred standing between the mortal world and Valhalla at that point. Once more acting as the narrator, Finan is unsure of Uhtred's fate. He informs the audience that although Uhtred's survival is not mentioned in the chronicles, many who knew the guy well agree that he was the greatest fighter of his day. In contrast to the movie, Cornwell's books have a much clearer conclusion. Uhtred's property spreads from one coast to the other at the conclusion of Warlord, and on Athelstan's advice, he marries a younger widow. As indicated, the film is drastically different from the source material. Even if Uhtred is no longer able to decide which way to go, the two objects in front of him stand for peace. He has always dreamed of going to Valhalla after death because he is a warrior who practices pagan religion. He can have an eternal feast with his loved ones when he is reunited with them. If he lives, he will have a few more years to spend with his son Athelstan and his pals, though. He tends to lose the women he loves too soon. With Ijafu, that might alter. Valhalla isn't leaving, so don't call this wishful thinking. We therefore want to assume that Uhtred lives if it is left to us. Why does Uhtred ask Athelstan never to marry? Early on in the movie, Uhtred discovers Athelstan and Ingilmundr were having a sexual connection but conceals this information. However, Ingilmundr makes Anlaf aware of it, and Anlaf in turn informs the Christian kings, adding to their fury towards Athelstan. Ingilmundr is Uhtred's opposite in many ways. He is a Dane who was brought up by Saxons. Ingilmundr, unlike Uhtred, simply feigned to follow the faith of his captors. Up until the point where he was killed on Athelstan's orders, he was a pagan. Uhtred, who is aware of Athelstan's identity, spares the latter a lifetime of scrutiny and animosity by stipulating that he not marry and choose Edmund as the heir in his request. Uhtred is once more prepared to act as the young king's shield wall. Athelstan accepts the offer with gratitude after realizing what his instructor has in mind. Who are the 7 kings prophesied to die? What is the Northumbrian prophecy? The phrase 7 kings must die was uttered by Ingriff, Finan's girlfriend. The full prophecy is entitled 7 kings must die, and the woman you love. Uhtred points out that he is neither a king nor does he have a woman, although thinking that both roles are intended for him. Many people worry that the prophecy speaks about Ijafu when their connection begins to blossom. The second portion of the prophecy, it turns out, is intended for Finan, not Uhtred. Ingrid foretells her own demise before it actually occurs. Regarding the first portion of the prophecy, Edward really died as the first king. The Battle of Brunanburh results in the deaths of 5 future or heir monarchs, including Scotia, Orkney, Man, Shetland, and Strathclyde, but none of the 7 enemy kings. Uhtred questions whether he will be the 7th king despite never having declared himself to be one after suffering the wounds. Astrid doesn't appear to have been included in the Northumbrians' list of lost heirs. She was supposed to take over as Northumbria's ruler after her father had reclaimed the territory. The Northumbrian prophecy is effectively verified by her death in the battlefield. Thanks for watching. If you liked this video, make sure to like and subscribe for more.